There is a war happening inside you right now, not between good and evil, not between your past and your future, but between what is and what you're refusing to accept. That war has a name. It's called resistance, and it is the single greatest source of human suffering that exists. Not circumstances, not people, not the chaos of the world outside. Your refusal to allow what already is. Today we're going to go deep, past the surface level talk about just letting go, and break down exactly what resistance does to your energy, your body, and your entire experience of being alive. Because once you understand this at an energetic level, you can never unsee it. Part 1. What is resistance actually? Most people think resistance is a mindset problem, a mental habit, something you fix by thinking differently. But resistance isn't just a thought, it is an energetic contraction. Think of your natural state as a river, constantly moving, flowing, shifting. Energy is meant to move through you the way water moves through a landscape. That is your default nature. Resistance is what happens when you build a dam. When something occurs in your life, a loss, a failure, an emotion you didn't ask for, and your first instinct is, no, not this. That rejection doesn't make the experience go away. It freezes it in place. The event passes, but the energy of the resistance stays. Physicists will tell you that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only transform. And when you resist an experience, you don't destroy it. You trap it in your nervous system, in your body, in your field. It becomes a held charge, a pocket of frozen energy that your entire system now has to work around. That work, that constant detour around what you've refused to feel, that is the suffering. Part 2, the energetic mechanics of suffering. Let's get precise about this. When a painful experience arises, grief, fear, rejection, shame, it carries energy. That energy has a natural arc. It wants to move. It wants to be felt, processed, and released. That is its nature. But the moment you label it as too much, unacceptable, dangerous, you interrupt that arc. You clench, you contract, you turn away from the sensation instead of through it. And here is where it gets fascinating. The clenching itself generates more energy than the original emotion. The resistance creates its own signal. Anxiety, tightness, hypervigilance, numbness, layered on top of the original wound. Now you're not just dealing with sadness, you're dealing with the fear of sadness, the resistance to the resistance, a loop. This is why people who've suppressed grief for years don't just feel a little sad, they feel crushed, because decades of frozen energy have been compressing into a smaller and smaller space inside them. Your body becomes a storage unit for unlived experiences. Your nervous system stays locked in a low-grade threat state, scanning, bracing, protecting, because it senses the dams you've built and knows they're under pressure. This is chronic stress. This is anxiety. This is the inexplicable heaviness people carry without knowing why. It is all the weight of what was never allowed to move. Part 3, why we resist the protective illusion. Now, why do we do this? Why does the human system resist so compulsively? Because resistance feels like control. When something painful happens, the mind immediately tries to establish dominance over the experience. If I don't let this fully land, I won't be destroyed by it. If I stay tense and guarded, I can manage it. This is the ego's deepest strategy. Reject what threatens the sense of a stable, controlled self. And it worked. Once. When you were young and genuinely lacked the capacity to process certain experiences, contraction was a survival tool. The mind learned to push things down, store them away, keep functioning. But that strategy never got updated. So now as an adult, with full capacity to feel and release, you're still running a child's defense mechanism. You're still treating every uncomfortable emotion like a threat to your survival. The tragedy is this: the protection is now the prison. The very walls built to keep the pain out or what keep you locked inside it. Part 4. What allowance actually does energetically? So what's the alternative? Not toxic positivity, not pretending pain doesn't exist, not forcing yourself to be okay with things that genuinely harm you. Allowance. Allowance is the radical act of letting an experience be exactly what it is, without adding the second layer of rejection on top of it. When you stop resisting an emotion, something immediate happens energetically. The charge begins to move. Fear breathed into becomes aliveness. Grief fully felt becomes profound love. Anger met without suppression becomes clarity and power. These aren't metaphors. These are the natural outcomes of allowing energy to complete its arc rather than cutting it off mid-wave. The wave was always going to pass. It is the dam, the resistance, that turned a passing wave into a flood. Allowance doesn't mean you enjoy pain. It means you stop spending more energy fighting the pain than the pain itself would have cost you. It means you stop doubling your suffering through your response to your suffering. Part 5. The compounding effect. Here's what nobody talks about enough. Resistance compounds. Every time you resist a feeling, you add another layer of frozen charge to your system. Over months, over years, over decades, that compounding builds what can only be described as an internal weight that colors everything. Your sleep, your relationships, your creativity, your physical health, your capacity for joy. Because a system under that kind of internal load is a system in constant survival mode. And a system in survival mode cannot simultaneously be in growth mode, love mode, presence mode. You cannot be fully here when half your energy is guarding the dams you've built. This is why people who do the inner work, who begin to consciously dissolve their resistance, often describe it as waking up. Colors become brighter, relationships deepen, the body feels lighter. That's not magic. That is the return of energy that was previously tied up in resistance. You get yourself back. Suffering is not life punishing you. Suffering is the gap between what is happening and what you are willing to let happen. Close that gap, not by controlling life, but by expanding your capacity to meet it. And the suffering does not disappear entirely, but it stops compounding. It stops becoming a story that owns you. You feel what's real. You let it move. You return to flow. That is the work, not thinking your way out of pain, not bypassing it, but becoming the kind of presence that is wide enough, open enough, to let life actually move through you instead of getting stuck inside you. The river doesn't suffer, it flows. That is what you are. Drop a comment below. What are you currently resisting? And if this landed for you, share it with someone who needs to hear it.